I recently watched Sycra's video, The Practice Trap, and in his video he argues that we as artists shouldn't do drawing practice as an exercise, but instead we should pick up a project and try to figure it out as we go, because this is more motivating and engaging than just some studies and drills. And even though he does have a point about these exercises being boring and unengaging, I would argue that we have to do this kind of practice regularly. If you're new to my channel, my name is Darana and I'm a concept artist and illustrator. And feel free to leave a like and subscribe to this channel so I can continue doing this. So when you begin artist and you take on this huge project like a comic book in his example, what usually ends up happening that you get completely overwhelmed and give up. Even in the worst case scenario, you can get some kind of art block and even stop drawing for a while. I'm speaking from experience. Only some people who are more persistent than average would continue going and finish this project, and of course they're gonna learn a lot. But in my opinion, for the most of us, this approach would hurt more than benefit. Most of us already put too much pressure on ourselves, and starting on a project that is way too hard for you, it's just going to create this unnecessary resistance to drawing. But when you do these simple practices and drills and drawing exercises, you level up your skill without much pressure, because it's just a study. It's okay if you fail it. It's okay if you do an ugly drawing, because the whole point of it is just to do it, and you already succeed in that. Doesn't mean though that you have to wait until you learn everything and never start on a project before that, because in fact we can't learn everything and you will never feel ready. The learning process is something we do our whole life. So what the hell are you supposed to do? You're supposed to do studies, or you're supposed to clench your teeth and do these hard projects? Well, in my opinion, neither of these paths are good. What you should do a mix of both. So do drawing practices, but these exercises have to match your current level of your skill. Because if they're too easy, they're going to be boring, and if they're too hard, they're too overwhelming. And then, of course, you should also draw what you're passionate about, whatever you like. And when you do your passion projects, you should try to identify what you're struggling with, and then you focus your studies on that. And with your passion projects, don't jump way over your head. So if you never ever drew a human before and you really want to draw comics, please don't start exactly with that, or at least adjust your definition of done so this project is actually manageable for you. So for example, yesterday you were drawing this warrior character, and for the love of God, you just couldn't get his sword right, no matter how you tried. So here you have it, here you have your problem area that you can focus your studies on. So when you have your problem identified, write a list of exercises that can help you to overcome that. So in this sword situation, for example, maybe you're struggling with perspective. Then you can draw these simple shapes from life. Or, to example, you're struggling with coming up with a design. So go on the internet, find a bunch of historical sword designs and study them. Do not copy, study. Analyze the shape, write some notes, try to break it down to its simplest elements. Focus on this area for a while, maybe for a couple of weeks. You don't have to know it perfectly before you move on something else, just so you get a little bit of confidence in this area. So let's summarize so far. I would say you should absolutely do whatever you're passionate about, but make it doable for you. When you do get stuck, identify the problem and study it for a while. Try to always work on your lacking skills, parallel to your other drawing. One of the things that I totally agree with Sycra is that you should never practice for the sake of practicing. You should always know why you're studying whatever you're studying. So, for example, you're a beginner artist and you heard somewhere that when you're a beginner you have to do gesture drawings. And you do just that. But do you even need that? Why do you want to draw? What is your goal? If you want to be a character artist, then of course, absolutely, you have to do gesture drawing. But if you want to be environment concept artist, then you don't need to start with that. You will probably need to start with composition and perspective. If you're really into very technical drawings like Scott Robertson does, then you should start with perspective instead and maybe never do gesture drawing. Maybe your goal is to become children's books illustrator. Then maybe you should start with color theory, composition and storytelling. It can happen that you have no idea why you want to learn to draw. or you just want to draw because you like it, you like the process, then absolutely do whatever you love to do. Then identify your desired skill level. How well do you want to draw technically? And try to strive for that. So always know your why. Another point that I full-heartedly agree with Sycra, that these exercises and drills can be boring as hell, and they're so unengaging that you just never do them. And if that's true for you, that means that you either chose a bit too easy type of exercise for you, or that you have difficulty connecting this practice to your why. If you find it hard to motivate yourself to study, what you should do, you should make it fun. Because this is actually one of the biggest drivers of motivation. And I even wrote a blog post about it, so check it out if you want. But how do you make it fun? Well, in my opinion, there's two ways to do it. Number one is to add some fun element to it. And number two, you can ride the wave of your current passion. So to add fun to your studies, you can draw some funny element every time you draw something. For example, if you do perspective studies, you can draw funny little people walking around, or in any other, you can add some faces or speech bubbles or some kind of storytelling element. For me, it was pretty engaging. Or you can also add engaging activity on top of it. For example, you listen your favorite audiobook only when you do studies, or you have your favorite treat only when you finish the practice for the day. Yes, this is extrinsic motivation and it works worse than intrinsic, but sometimes you just have to do these kind of tricks with your brain. Another way is to base your studies on your current interest or passion. For example, are you into strength training? Then you can do anatomy studies of the muscle groups that you're currently training. Or if you're a gamer, then you can come up with a bunch of studies that you can do from your favorite game. Are you into plants? Then go and draw some plants from life. You can study color and light from them, you can study perspective, you just can study drawing. Possibilities are endless. You can also motivate yourself to study by committing to challenges. For example, see if you can draw 100 cubes in perspective. Or do a competition with your friend and see who you can actually finish it. And sometimes you just have to do boring stuff. Forcing yourself to work on something unengaging is actually strengthens your willpower. It's gonna help you with other stuff in life. We shouldn't underestimate the power of simple practice. So to summarize, number one, do both practice and passion projects. Number two, always know your why. Number three, make your studying more engaging by adding fun or challenge to it. And number four, sometimes you just have to do it. In the end, you know yourself best. Try different approaches and see what works for you. Maybe you are this kind of person that gets super motivated and engaged by overcoming obstacles. Then, of course, feel free to take on huge projects and learn that way. But maybe you're more like me, who gets easily overwhelmed and have to do stuff bit by bit with mini steps. Nevertheless, the regular practice is the only thing that's required to draw your skill. So do whatever approach is going to help you to draw every day or nearly every day. In learning, quantity leads to quality. The more you do, the better you get, even if you fail most of the times. So, good luck with your studying, and I see you in the next one. The light is shit. I should buy my light. So, for example, last night you were drawing this cool dude with a huge gun. Absolutely do whatever you want to do. And number four, sometimes you just have to do it. I had the Shia LaBeouf meme here. So cringe. Am I cringe? I don't know.